Good afternoon to you. It is 4:06. We are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. It's the Joel Natale Show, live, local, and award-winning here, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And on a fun Friday, let's talk history here. And so I'm very, very glad to welcome to our studios. Here we've got Christine Lorraine Morgan and Anna Mae Van Dyne. And we're talking about this new book, The Stories of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park. Now, Anna Mae is representing the Lawrence Park Historical Society. But ladies, welcome. Appreciate you being on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All righty, we're a family show. Let's get origin stories. Let's start with you, Anna Mae. How did you grow up? Are you a native to Lawrence Park there?
No, I'm not a native of Lawrence Park. I grew up on the west side of the city.
Okay.
Moved to Lawrence Park as a young adult in 1976, and I've lived there since then.
That's a strategic move there. Beautiful houses in Lawrence Park.
It's a nice community, a very small community. Everybody seems to know each other, and everybody's business because it is a small town.
Yeah.
But yes, the houses are beautiful. There's an era of history to it. You know, we're not 1800 houses, but we're 1900,
Wow.
turn of the century to 1990s. But, you know, the old portion of town is all early 1900s.
Pretty remarkable. And what got you involved in history? I mean, did you take that as in school or, you know?
No, I've always enjoyed being learning about history, visiting museums, visiting historical sites. So when the Lawrence Park Historical Society was created around 1979, I joined as an early member of the Historical Society and just kind of stayed with it after that. Enjoyed listening to the old members of the community who aren't here anymore, unfortunately, tell their stories. And it was so interesting to sit there and just, you get them going and they would just talk for hours about what they did growing up, where they played. A lot of the old timers would trap and hunt in the area that I now live in. So
Right.
It's been interesting.
Yeah, again, it's been developed in the last 120 years or so. So pretty remarkable. How about you, Christine? Did you grow up around here? Yeah.
Yes, I was born in Erie, and my parents moved a lot when I was a kid, so I've been to many different schools because every year it seems like they had a new baby, and we kept outgrowing our houses. But I started at Our Lady of Peace, and I graduated from Strong Vincent. And my affiliation with Lawrence Park, I live close to it, and I worked at GE for a number of years.
Okay, terrific. And again, you're a historian. Your work is all throughout the internet and things. Before the internet, were you able to kind of accumulate some of these photographs and some of the stories,
Before the internet, I was employed at Brown Thompson newspapers.
Okay.
I started at the Mill Creek Sun, and I had to fill those pages. And some weeks on a slow news week, it was tricky. So I started appearing at the Erie County Historical Society about 2 doors down from here.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman in there named Ed Wheeler. I'd tell Ed what I was looking for, mostly about Mill Creek, of course. And he'd shuffle off into the back room and come out with a pile of periodicals and books. Wow. And I spent so many hours in that building, I became almost a fixture. So yeah, I started out in history. So by the time the internet came, I had photos and stories and quite an accumulation.
It's interesting, we're talking about kind of staying a focus on that Lawrence Park. What's interesting is if you go way back far enough, Lawrence Park and Wesleyville were part of Mill Creek Township.
I'm going to correct you.
Oh, snap. Do it. Okay.
Well, if you go back far enough, yes, they were. But when Lawrence Park became a village, we were part of Harbor Creek and Mill Creek. And at that point, Wesleyville was part of Harbor Creek.
Okay. Go ahead, yeah.
Was it called East Mill Creek?
Yes, it was called East Mill Creek.
Thank you.
It was called East Mill Creek.
East Mill Creek.
And so I'm trying to remember what. So when you're looking at the city limits, were they at Bird Drive and Franklin Ave before the GE came down?
Actually, Franklin Avenue did not exist before the General Electric, and the city limits were all the way back to, I believe, Hess Avenue.
Okay, they're at Hess.
They're
Gotcha.
at Hess.
Yeah.
So from Hess east to what is today Smithson Avenue was East Mill Creek. From the backyards of Smithson Avenue further east was Harbor Creek until you ran into Northeast.
So some of these stories here, especially when we're talking about Grove House Park, they're actually an amusement park that was in East Mill Creek.
Actually, all of this, both Grove House and 4 Mile Creek Park, were in East Mill Creek at the time because Lawrence Park didn't become a township until 1926. So we're celebrating 100 years as a community this year.
Amazing. All right. Let's get to the book for a second here, and then we'll bounce back and forth. But let's start about the origin story of this book. Now, the only thing I know about Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park is the famous Lost Erie, what is it, Claridge?
John Claridge.
Yeah. Again, when that book came out, was it 90, 91? I ran and got it. I think I went to Walden Books because I'm like, I need to know about this stuff. And had no clue about what was the other big hotel at the neck.
Massachusetts Point.
Thank you for pronouncing it because I could never do it. But, I mean, all these huge hotels along the lake, of course. When I think about the Hotel Lawrence, it just makes me cry, which was at 10th and State, between State and Peach. I mean, all of these missing edifices, right? Whether they succumbed to fire or they succumbed to the wrecking ball or what have you. So, but I knew a paragraph about Grove House Park. What was the initial desire to kind of go deep dive?
Okay, well, there was a couple of gentlemen, entrepreneurs, who had an eye, and they could tell that people were going down there and picnicking. So it was all immediately, before it was even a park, it was a draw to people. And it was owned by the Crowleys. So what they did was they made the Crowleys an offer to buy the land by the lake down there, and they succeeded. And they built, the first year that they owned it, Grove House, the hotel was not there. That building you see, it started out with just a dance hall and refreshment. So people come down there and they'd picnic and they'd go in the dance hall. The dance hall was very elaborate, and they advertised that they had every good refreshment because they served alcohol down there, even through the prohibition. They were serving.
How did they do that?
Serving alcohol.
The manager of the 4 Mile Creek Park had a side interest in making alcohol.
Okay, so he was a moonshiner.
He was a moonshiner, and he made primarily beer.
Okay,
but he ended up going to jail over it.
Did he really?
They actually convicted him.
Oh gosh!
But you asked about the interest. There's always been rumors, talk about what was down there among people at the Historical Society. Most of the public didn't even know this existed. I had heard talk, again, going back to those older members of the community that I talked to. They remembered going as children down there.
Did they really?
They did.
If you were to walk the grounds right now, are there any remnants? Is there any just outcroppings or,
Not of Grove House Park. The only thing of Grove House Park is there were some steps. The steps that you see on the front of the book. Yeah. There was some remnants of those steps up until last year. I'm told that over the winter, what was left came apart and slid down the hill.
Seriously?
Although I haven't personally been down there to inspect. But that's all that's left of Grove House Park. Now, after Grove House Park, new owners came along and they built 4 Mile Creek Park and they just took over the buildings that didn't burn down, because Grove House itself burned, but the other buildings did not burn, the dance hall. And
so both of these places are in the same exact location.
Yes.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
And as of today, there is one building that's still standing from 4 Mile Creek Park, and it was the restroom. It's now the Lawrence Park Fishing Club. But it's standing, and it's a beautiful little building, and only half of the building is from the park, but at least there's still something there.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
it, though.
That's remarkable.
And that's all outlined in here.
Okay.
With pictures.
So you were telling the story here about, some entrepreneurial men said, "Hey, this has a natural draw. Let's make something of it." And they started by building a dance hall, and that was kind of a big thing at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, wasn't it?
It was. And you have to figure they did not have recordings. They couldn't go on and, play a record or play an MP or anything that we have now. So they had live music.
Right.
The other thing that was interesting about that was that we didn't have a trolley. Most people didn't have cars. So it was a horse and buggy to get out there. And it was really important that they were able to get this pier and the steps in that you see in the picture of Grove House Park a lot, because people could go from the public dock, get a boat, and you could actually charter a boat, or there were some boats that normally made the route.
Kind of like a ferry almost?
Thank you,
yeah.
Almost like a ferry. And you would go from the public dock over to 4 Mile Creek by boat, because it was mostly accessible by boat.
And
it really
and
wasn't accessible by road.
We got to tell our listeners to kind of visualize this. This would be a boat that went through the channel to get into the Lake Erie proper to make it to Lawrence Park and 4 Mile Creek.
Right, because you'd have to go through the channel. Gull Point did not come out as far as it comes out today.
Right.
So you really were in those rough waters of the lake, and you had to tie up to that pier that went out into the lake and then go from there. If you tried to go out East Lake Road wasn't paved. It was a dirt track, a dirt road going out from the city.
Well, again, I'm a roads guy. So was Buffalo Road kind of the main drag in that area then?
I would say probably.
Yeah, Buffalo Road and also East Lake Road were both roads at the time.
Okay.
They were both, but they were,
yeah,
they were dirt roads.
They were dirt roads. Yeah, just like everything else. Yeah, we didn't have the good roads period until, at least into the 20s here. I think that's when Colonel Eisenhower made his cross country trip here. I'm going to take my first break. It's 4:20. History on a Friday, the stories of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park. The new book is landing like tomorrow. More about that in a second. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Excited to chat about this new local history book called The Stories of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park. We've got Christine Lorraine Morgan and Anime Van Dyne. Christine, Lorraine Morgan, and Toby Schaefer wrote the book. Anime is the president of the Lawrence Park Historical Society. We were talking about the idea that the area around 4 Mile Creek was the major draw for basically the east side and oftentimes for all of Erie, right? I mean...
Right. As people came from as far away as Pittsburgh to come up and stay at either Grove House Park or 4 Mile Creek Park when they were both in their heydays. After the Grove House Park burned, the main building burned down, did they have lodging at 4 Mile Creek?
They did not have official lodging until there was a hotel built in the 1920s for 4 Mile Creek Park. And the only reason we found out there was a hotel there was it burned down, and it was in the news article because we didn't really know until recently. Actually, Toby Schaefer, he's a research guy, and he came up with information that proved it was open until 1925 because we thought it closed in 24. So he did a lot of research on this for us.
My listeners know that one of my hobbies is to read the old newspapers, which are now online with the library. So these things are knowable now because you could hear contemporary accounts of who was performing, let's say, at the dance hall in 1908 or what have you, right? Or if Matthew Griswold showed up with his bride, at an event, or when President Taft came to town,
Right, exactly.
With the Strongs,
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yes, because we can get into the newspapers now, we can find out a lot of that stuff. We find that they had burlesque shows down there, and not the burlesque shows that we think about,
right.
But these were much tamer, but there was always music and there were shows, and it was a draw. Many of the churches in the area and other fraternal organizations held their summer picnics down there, much like they do at Waldemere today.
Isn't that something? And we were talking about how it was that you could have the trolley park, which was Waldemere, and Grove House Park on the east side, and they both thrived. 4 Mile Creek Park with its own roller coaster and so on.
Right, the roller coaster was just one of the rides. It had a roller coaster. It had a merry-go-round. There was something, I think it was called a witch's hat or something. There were multiple rides there. We don't have a list of the complete rides. That's why Jennifer Sopko is coming in on June 13th, and she's researched all of the 4 Mile Creek Park, and she has a listing of all the different rides, and she was amazed at how many rides were out there.
And she's been working on it for years.
Yeah.
She's an expert.
So what were some of the interesting things you discovered, Christine, in the research? What are some of the highlights of the book here?
Oh, it just always amazed me at some of the things that Erie had. You mentioned Lost Erie. How many of those beautiful places in there burned?
Right.
Okay, Riverside Inn burned. Grove House Park burned. Did Massasoga Point, no, Lone Fisherman's Inn, I don't know if that burned, but so many of these places from our past burned down, and it makes me sad. So that's one of the things that I came across. But the thing that probably fascinated me the most was the way this park was decimated by the same flood that wiped out Erie on August 3rd, 1915. It also flooded 4 Mile Creek. It took out the roller coaster. And because the roller coaster was situated right next to the creek. So I guess the moral of that story is if you're having a roller coaster, build it away from a creek. Right. Because it just took an... And also the trolley bridge was ruined. So the people that were there that day were completely stranded. And that was tough in the early 20s or in 1915. You did not want to be stranded because, rides were not easy to come by. You couldn't call an Uber.
No, you couldn't.
And there was no bus to come and get you either. And you're 4 or 5 miles from the city, so that's a long walk.
And there was no electricity there.
This is interesting. They're showing an outdoor theater at the 4 Mile Creek. What kind of I mean, did they actually do dramatic performances?
They did.
or-
They did plays. In fact, I think one of the plays might be mentioned in here. But they had, in fact, they were very proud of their plays. They had their own theater troupe come in. They didn't stay there, but they brought it. It was a group from Erie. They had regulars, like you have a house band. They had a house
Sure.
theater group.
It's remarkable.
Here, I found the page where it shows that for the week of August 9th, vaudeville was coming, and they were going to have Dubec's Animal Circus with dogs, monkeys, and cats. Hodges and Brown, comedy singing cartoonist, I believe that says. Catherine Bartlett, singing comedian. George and Geiger and Walters, the latest musical novelty in the streets of Italy. The Three Marinos, comedy and
Equilibriates, whatever that is.
whatever that is. And an extra added attraction, Little Grace of Albrecht. So there was all kinds of interesting things. They had the harem with the Broadway chorus at a different time.
And don't forget, it says you have to remove your hats when you come in.
Is that what it was? Okay. We've got to take our break. News is next. You are tuned to Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, learning a lot about pretty much a forgotten amusement area there at 4 Mile Creek on the east side. Stay with us. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. You're getting your fill of local history here on the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. And with us are Anna Mae Van Dyne. She is the head of the Lawrence Park Historical Society. Her husband's here as well, who's the vice president. And Christine Lorraine Morgan, participating, Christine, author of the Stories of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park. Lots of pictures here, Christine. Again, tell us your approach to the book. What did you want to accomplish?
I guess, number one, you mentioned Lost Erie. This is forgotten. I mean, this is...
It's almost like Found Erie.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Very, very well said.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that, we know what was around us before. And the other thing is, you mentioned the pictures. I really pizzazzed up the pictures as best I could, made them bright, bold, and colorful, because I have adult children who are in their 30s and they will not look at a photo that's black and white. So we are trying to reach younger people and get them interested in local history especially. And one of the ways we can do that is by presenting them with colorful photos as well as printed information.
Right. And this is an easy read. It's not a big, heavy, boring book. I'll be honest, the pictures are big, there's a story behind it, and the story's there, but there's a lot of pictures and it's what,
44 pages.
44 pages. That's what I was just going to say. It's 44 pages. So you're not going to sit down and have to read a book for 3 hours to find the history of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek.
So the demise of the Grove House Park was the fire in 1902, right?
Yes.
Of the big building.
Yes.
And then did it transfer ownership to the developers of 4 Mile Creek, or no?
Well, the hotel burned down Labor Day 1902. Right after it burned down, someone came along, bought it, and because those, like we said, those buildings some of them were still standing. So it really transitioned from one park into another almost overnight.
Really? Yeah. Then what was the demise of the 4 Mile Creek Park then?
4 Mile Creek Park was getting ready to open in April of 1925. They were using some brilliant new method of painting called spray painting. And one night in April, there was a security guard on duty, and he didn't notice that the 4 Mile Creek Park had caught on fire. Wow. And I guess the fire just grew and grew, and it grew to such an inferno that even though the security guard missed it, the Coast Guard station across the lake saw the inferno, and they called the fire department, the Lawrence Park Fire Department in Erie. And so when the security guard finally noticed the fire, he was trying to leave on that one road. There's only one road. So he's leaving, and he said he's going to go try to find a phone. And as he's leaving, he's accosted by all these emergency vehicles coming because he didn't know anybody called. So that is how the park burned down. And it started out where it might have been saved, but the wind changed, and it pretty much took out the crucial buildings. And that was that. And right after it, Matthew Griswold did buy it for $60,000.
Now, there were some buildings that did not burn, and some of those buildings remained until the 1940s. Okay.
What exists there now? What's at 4 Mile Creek Park?
There is the Lawrence Park Fishing Club is a lot of the area, and the other area that was part of the park was the GE Picnic Grove.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly who owns what down there as of this moment, but that's what's historically been located there.
Right.
So where is the golf course?
The golf course is there also, and currently I believe the golf course owns the Picnic Grove and all of the other land.
And the fishing club.
And the fishing club land.
So that, I mean, again, if you remember the Lawrence Park Country Club or the golf course.
The golf course.
Yeah, that's this land that we're talking about.
Yeah, and now the golf course and the fish club are two separate entities, but they are next door to each other, and it's all kind of intermeshed. But that's what's there now. It's pretty much private property, except the road is public property. So if somebody's curious and they want to drive, it's called 4 Mile Creek Road. It's off of East Lake Road. That is public property. You can drive down all the way to the end of that road. It ends at the lake. There's a little parking lot. If you get out of your car, you look right in front of you, you're going to see the lake. If you look to your right, you will see where Grove House was. Although none of the buildings there now were there before, and that's private property. If you look to your left, you'll see the fishing club, which is the one building that's still standing. So that's, people can drive down there and look, just can't really get out and walk around or anything.
It must have been just a treat every summer for these people that lived in this time period. Again, we're talking about 1887 basically to 1925. But like you said, when you talk to the old timers, they would have been young people.
They were they were young people, and they enjoyed going down there and having a good time down there.
Yeah.
It was the place to go.
And I do want to give an extra shout out to Toby Schaefer, because this is a person, he's on the internet and he does a lot of historical posting, but he doesn't do it for any reason other than he feels very strongly that he would like everyone around to know Erie's history. So what a great way to be motivated and to share, like you said, we're finding history, we're finding Erie, we're not losing it anymore.
This is a great moment to pivot to talk about how popular now these Facebook groups are that center around history. So the ones that I'm getting a ton of feed, and I belong to the Erie, PA history one. Was that GC?
That's who we're talking about.
Yeah, that's him. Okay, gotcha. The GC is the moderator of that one. Of course, you moderate, Christine, the Little Italy one.
Yes, and I also have the vintage and historic buildings of
there
Erie
you go.
County.
Yes, and then there's like this Jackson Township that I don't know why I'm getting them. Do you get those?
I don't know either. I get those also.
But they're all full of Erie stuff. Where's
yeah.
Jackson Township?
Those
have
are
no idea.
Jackson Township is south of us, and what they're posting is old postcards, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But there's also a Lawrence Park Historical Society. We have actually 3 different Facebook pages.
Do you really?
We have the Lawrence Park the LP Centennial Facebook page, which we post events that are happening in the township that deal with the centennial. We have a Lawrence Park Historical Society Facebook page that my husband posts things on. And then Christine has started for us a group page, Lawrence Park Historical Society, and that one people can interact and post things that they find of interest of Lawrence Park.
We also have a YouTube channel now. We've been conducting interviews with some of the folks that have lived there for a long time, getting their thoughts recorded and sharing it with the world. We're finding history again.
You're right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Lawrence Park for a second, because again, it's you've heard about company towns, especially some of the steel mill towns and things like that, or the coal mining towns, right, in West Virginia. But this was a very well planned company town from GE. And again, just a casual observer would say, you had the big shots, you had the engineers and you had the managers in the single family homes, and then you had some of the workers, in the walk-ups and things. Again, it's the only place that I can think of, maybe except for off of 10th Street, those landmark apartments, that you have walk-ups.
Right.
It looks like Brooklyn.
Right. Well, first of all, I'll give you a little history here.
Yeah.
GE did come. This is the first time GE actually built a town from the ground up. They started with the Garden City concept, which came out of England.
Okay.
And they built single-family homes with gardens on big enough lots that they could have gardens. So our early streets were Smithson, Silliman, and Rankin. They're single-family dwellings. If you go south of Iroquois, they're all there's single-family dwellings. Those are the early homes. Those were for the workers.
No, they were. Okay.
If you go around what we call Elbow Tree Park, but if you go north of Iroquois, you'll run into some rather large single-family homes, and those were for more of the executives, the engineers, the managers, and stuff like that. What happened with the town was started they started building it in 1912. The war came in 1918. Erie, the city, along with Lawrence Park, all of a sudden around 1914 had a huge housing problem. There weren't enough houses for all of the workers. So the Navy was giving out loans. It was through the United States government. They gave out loans to build houses. So there was a landscape architect that came in and helped GE with redesigning, and they built all those walk-up apartments, as you call them, the townhomes, row homes, whatever you want to call them, that are brick. They have an English style to them.
Okay.
But those were built around between 1917 and 1918. They were originally rented out.
Interesting.
And those were for workers. There's different sizes, different styles. I mean, if you walk around, you can see, oh, these are smaller, these are a little bit bigger, these are even bigger than that. There's duplexes,
But they all had their own entrance and exits, right? And did they have brick walls between them? And
they're brick.
I mean, so you can buy one now.
You can buy one. You can buy one now.
Yeah.
And there's a brick wall between you. They were very conscious about the fire exposure. So believe it or not, when they first built these, the roofs were made of asbestos. And there were they put fire brick up through, fire tile actually is what it was called. And so the only part of the interior of the house that is frame would be your walls inside your house, the floors, and your steps, everything, and your trim.
Right.
Your exterior, your common walls are all cement.
They're all cement.
They're tile.
Interesting. And what are the streets that are famous for the row houses there?
The row houses are on Smith. There's some on Smithson. They're Rankin, Priestley, Newton, Rumsey, Napier.
Yeah. How about like building community centers, churches, and things like that? Did those come right away with the other building?
Believe it or not, some of our churches did. Unfortunately, the Lutheran Church, which was the oldest church, they tore their really nice brick building down to build a more contemporary building, and they just closed in the last 5 years, and they've sold that building, and there's a Buddhist community center in there.
And pretty much the whole community of Lawrence Park is on the National Register, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Everything from 4 Mile Creek to Nagel Road, from East Lake Road to Bell Street is on the historic register as because of John Nolan.
And that's why the Dairy Queen is still there, because it's in the National Register of Historic. That's why it's the same Dairy Queen.
Right. They didn't touch the Dairy Queen.
Well, actually, there's a story behind that. Yeah. The man who owned the Dairy Queen was approached by corporate and they wanted to change the sign. And he called us and said, I don't want to change this sign. This is the reason why I bought this Dairy Queen. Right. I just love that sign. Yeah. So the Historical Society actually wrote a letter to the corporate headquarters of Dairy Queen and said, this is in the historic register. This property is on the historic district, and we would prefer that you do not change this sign. And they agreed to keep the sign, so we have the original sign from 1950.
I think that's the only one in the U.S. left. I'm not sure, but
it's probably up there. Tell me about Main Street, because it looks different than like the leafy boulevard of Iroquois Ave. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Like it looks like not as much attention was paid to Main Street on design.
It really was.
Okay.
It doesn't look like it, but you have to understand that Main Street was probably built in about 3 or 4 different time periods.
Okay.
The oldest section of Main Street was the 4 corners of Main and Rankin. The north side of Main and Rankin, both east and west, were probably built around 1912. We think that Irish Cousins might be one of the older buildings.
Gotcha.
And then the one on the east side was built. Then about 1918, when GE was building the row houses, they built a rather large, it was going to be, they called it a hotel, but it was really a boarding house with a restaurant, billiards room, barbershop, whole 9 yards. And then in 1920, the southeast corner was built. And then from there, for a long time, those were the only buildings there.
Okay.
And then slowly, in 1918, they built the row houses going towards the bridge. The bridge probably was built around, I want to say 1912, 1913. We have some pictures at the Historical Society with the old-fashioned lamps on the corners of the bridge.
So it's very possible that owners
have
took
done
license since then, right?
Right. But the other thing was there used to be these old, when I moved there in 76, it was really amazing because there's huge trees going down Main Street that would overarch, and it looked like you were walking or driving through a tunnel of trees.
Okay.
But a lot of those trees over the years have, because they were 100 years
really
old,
old, yeah.
they were getting old, they died.
One last big question about Lawrence Park, and that has to be about the diner. When did the diner come?
The diner was put in 1948.
Okay, after the war.
After the war. And when it was put in, it ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it was constantly filled. A family by the name of Curtis built the diner. They ran the diner. They made everything. They made homemade pies. They were known originally just as pies, but they built the diner, and it's been going strong ever since.
Really, I mean, again, was Dawn Van Scoter owns it now. She does a great job with it. All right, so we got a lot of information about Lawrence Park, but it is when you go and study the history of General Electric in the Erie Works, it is a significant event in the region's history. Again, if that fella from Schenectady doesn't meet up with his Yale buddy Matthew Griswold, we could be a totally different town.
We could, because
I'm talking about Greater Erie.
Right, exactly, because Mr. Griswold's friend, Mr. Pratt, was assigned by General Electric to find a new place to build a factory.
They had never built beyond
they were
New
in
England, beyond Schenectady, and
well, they were in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
They
Lynn.
were in Schenectady, and I think there was another little town up in the New York or Massachusetts area that they were in. They were looking for a new place because they needed to expand. They had outgrown their space.
And
they
wasn't he heading to Chicago?
Well, they were going to look in the Midwest is where they were looking. He had stopped in Buffalo, and he was headed for Cleveland, and he decided he'd stop and visit with his friend, Matthew Griswold, his buddy from college. And Matthew Griswold found out what he was doing and talked him into looking into property here. He continued on to Cleveland, and I don't know if he made it to Chicago or not, but he came back through, and he went back to Schenectady and convinced Schenectady that they needed to build it here in Erie County.
You read some of those papers, and there was a lot of back and forth about the land. I mean, again, Erie almost missed that opportunity, but somehow we got it together.
Exactly, we almost missed it because there was a lot of back and forth between where the railroad was going to be. Let's put a road through the plant. All kinds of things were going on. And finally, General Electric kept pushing, and they won, and they got what they basically got what they wanted, which allowed them to come. And so many businesses in Erie became feeder. You know,
right.
If they didn't,
they were subcontracting.
They were subcontracting.
Yeah.
They were feeding stuff to GE. So we wouldn't have as many. I don't think we'd have as many small businesses as we have today if it hadn't been for GE coming to the area.
And Christine, when you look at history like this, it's never cut and dry. It's always rough and tumble. I mean,
Never.
It's never a magic wand. It takes grit and determination, and sometimes some elevated voices to make things the way they are now.
It really does. And luckily, the people who built this city many years ago were very tough, and they were pioneer spirited. And you can look around you now and see the results of what they laid out for us.
There's no doubt about it. All right, let's talk about the book. I've got one more minute here. It's called The Stories of Grove House Park and 4 Mile Creek Park. Where can people get it? And then talk about this event that's coming up here. Yeah.
There's only one place to get it. It's going to be at the Lawrence Park Historical Society, which is at 4230 Iroquois Avenue. It's open on Thursdays from 2 to 4, Saturdays from noon to 2. So come on by tomorrow.
You're going to sign them?
Oh, I guess I could. We're going to have
be there.
We're going to have a meeting tomorrow morning before we open, and we're going to figure out, a price and how to do it. But yeah, and I'm going to turn it over now to Anna Mae to tell about the rest.
Okay. I just wanted to remind people that we have Jennifer Sopko from the Pittsburgh area coming up on June 13th. She will be speaking at 10 o'clock. The place has not been determined yet where we're going to speak. We were debating over whether to have it inside due to weather or try to have it outside down at the site. So if you keep looking at our Lawrence Park Historical Society Facebook pages or the Lawrence Park Centennial Facebook page or the Lawrence Park 100years.com page, we will have the site of where we're going to hold the talk.
Okay. That sounds tremendous.
Oh, yeah. One last thing. We got from Lakeshore Industries here in Erie, Pennsylvania. They are putting up a historic plaque. They're making one for these parks to put down on Route 5 near the entrance.
I love it. Again, we don't know where we're going unless we know where we came from. Right, ladies?
Very
exactly.
good.
Beautiful. Again, Christine Lorraine Morgan, Anna Mae Van Dyne. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the book.
Thanks.
And thanks for the nice chat. I could talk history all day long.
All day
folks.
long.
All day.
Yep.
Take care now, guys.